Hey, we're back. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from beautiful downtown Blue Ridge. We're at Circuit World here in Blue Ridge. And our guest this morning, Mr. Butch Patrick. How are you this morning?
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much. And you're right, it is beautiful around here.
It is beautiful. Natalie, are you okay? I know you're starstruck. It's all week. Should I tell everybody that when Mr. Patrick here, Butch?
Yes, please.
Played the role of Eddie Munster in the Munsters. So when I sent this over to Natalie, and most of you know Natalie, right? She said, I'm throwing you right in this, all right? So she said, can I write the story? And I said, only if you know your Munster trivia, right? She's so mad. I am getting it right. You had to do a whole week of Munster trivia. She did. We have Bruce, Rick, glad to have you back, and Jane, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Munsters. Mr. Patrick, Butch, you have the hot rods here in Blue Ridge. Why Blue Ridge? Why did you guys pick North Georgia Ford to come up and bring the hot rods?
You know, it's funny, when I purchased the cars a few years ago, I'm a gearhead. I'm a member of a car club called Dead Man's Curve up in New Jersey, but the Barris cars were so iconic because they were the first hot rods on television that were used as a family vehicle. And they really set a tone for a lot of people. Even today, a lot of hot rodders built the models and got inspired to build their own cars. But when I bought the cars, one of the things I knew is car dealerships would love to have an opportunity to do a promotion, because my dad used to own a car dealership, and I worked there, and I knew what it took to get new faces to come on the property. So the Munsters having a huge fan base, I thought this is an interesting thing. I can go out on the road, which I enjoy, visit places like Blue Ridge, and a friend of mine who lived in Atlanta. Actually, I called him, an old football NFL player, called him, and I said, do you know anybody in the, I'm going to be heading to St. Louis, do you know anybody in the Georgia area? And I used to live in Atlanta in '96. And he put me in touch with Cowboy. And the rest is history. Here we are. We go on the road. I've logged about 50,000 miles last year, crisscrossing the country, doing all kinds of appearances. But car dealerships is my main wheelhouse.
Well, tell us before we get into the Munsters, tell us the two cars you have.
Yep.
They're at North Georgia Ford right here in Blue Ridge. You can come up here. We're going to give Butch an opportunity to tell you what's going on with that. Right here at North Georgia Ford, you can come up and check out the cars, meet Butch. What are the two cars you have with you?
Well, both of them, Munster Koach and the Dragula, were the two vehicles that were used in the show. The Munster Koach was kind of like...
Is it okay? I didn't mean to be rude. If it's okay if sometimes I can't keep a straight face, because I've watched the Munsters like 9 times, right, Rick?
Yeah.
And he can't keep a straight face, and he's making faces.
I have a lot of mannerisms that'll probably throw you back.
Okay.
I don't want you...
My wife's constantly saying, you know, you do this like Herman, you do like that grandpa, you know. I get it. That was my family, so yes, I picked up their mannerisms.
Just so you didn't pick up their genetics.
I'm short, yeah, I'm no Herman's son. The Munster Koach and the Dragula were basically introduced to the show by George Barris, legendary builder. The ones that I have, the gentleman that built them was a Chevy guy. So the Coach has got a 454 in it, and the Dragula's got a 400 small block. High horsepower, very loud, and I recreate the Hot Rod Herman episodes at drag strips throughout the country as well. So other than the power plants, they're a little bit better made than the originals because they were built 15 years ago, where George put those together in the 60s just to be kind of a visual car. They really weren't roadworthy, and they went around the country. But mine are, the Coach is street legal. And the Dragula could be street legal, but it rides so hard I wouldn't want to take it on the road. But they're really cool if you come down and look at them. If I didn't tell you they weren't the real thing, if I didn't tell you they were reproductions, you would never know it. That's how good they are.
What were you going to say, Rick?
I said, Tim Ford, the owner, by the way, you're lucky because they'll take anything on trade if it doesn't breathe. So, you know. No, but I saw him in town, and he said, God, you got to come down to the dealership because Butch is going to be here and the cars are going to be there. So I think you're going to get mobbed down there today. There's a lot of gearheads in North Georgia.
And when I pulled into the showroom, they already had museum quality stuff on the floor.
Oh, did you see that? You saw the purple.
Oh yeah, the Munster car.
Yeah,
the Munster car before I brought my cars.
That's right.
Well, let me ask you the episode where they were at the drag strip. How exciting! If you're a gearhead and you like cars, the episode that you guys did where you're at the drag strip, I'll never forget.
Where was it? Pomona?
No, it was at Lions.
Lions.
An old famous drag strip in Wilmington, which was only a few miles from my house. And afterwards, when I first got my Mach 1 in 1969, when I was 16, I used to go to Lions on Wednesday nights and you could $2, you could drive all night and get time slips. So it was very convenient for me, and that's where my love affair with drag racing started. And when I was 16 to 18, I spent almost every weekend at the drags with a friend of mine, Jack Chrisman, and his family, who invented the funny car. So I was back there in the early days, hanging around with Perdome and McEwen and all the greats and the glory days of drag racing.
All the names, right?
Oh yeah, one of the coolest things with drag racing names were Fast Eddie Sharpman, Dino Don Nicholson, Jungle Jim Lieber. They all had these really cool names.
Right,
Can we? Yeah. I love the cars. I love the gearhead. I love all the conversation. Can we switch to talking about Munster?
Sure.
To talk about this show.
And maybe you should put it in perspective when this show ran for the younger people listening.
Yeah, it ran from 64 to 66. Al Lewis and Fred Gwynn, who played Herman and Grandpa respectively, were on a show called Car 54, Where Are You?
That's how I was going to bring that up.
2 years before that.
So did they come in with, I didn't mean to be rude, did they come in, and that was one of the things I was thinking, you're a young boy at this time, did they come in with such chemistry into that show from Car 54?
Exactly. When I wrote a book, and I told them some of the comedy routines that they had between themselves in the dungeon were right up there with Abbott and Costello and Laurel and Hardy and the best. They really were. And then in addition to their chemistry, they brought in a major movie star to play Lily, Yvonne DiCarlo.
Yes.
Who, before television was getting major stars to perform, she was like a groundbreaker.
They played Car 54, Fred Gwynn and Al Lewis played Car 54, so they had to come in. But Al Lewis... What was it like to work with Al Lewis? I can only frame it that way. We watched a clip.
I sent him a clip last
We watched a clip yesterday.
I found a clip of you climbing out of that. I don't know how the heck you got into that cabinet.
Yeah.
When he was on Pat Sajak.
Oh,
you climbed out of the cabinet.
It was small.
And he described you. Al Lewis described you like a kid. What was it like working with Butch Patrick as a kid on the set? And he said, it was great. It wasn't like some of those other kids. Oh, like you want to kick them. You really kicked the kid? Oh, no, not when the mom's looking.
Yeah, W.C. Fields said
What was it like working with Al Lewis?
He was exactly an extension of, he came across on the screen a lot like his real personality. He was vaudevillian, he came from the old school circus on the road situation, always on, kind of a comedy routine, like a stand-up routine.
Yeah.
He always was edgy. Most people liked it. Occasionally you would get people that he was, mean to.
Right.
But it was all part of the act. Kind of like a Howard Stern thing. Howard on the mic and off the mic is totally different. Fred Gwynn, on the other hand, was a true Renaissance guy. He was a true actor. He was a musician. He was a sculptor. He was Harvard and Hasty Pudding Club, all of the above. So they were totally different, but at the same time, that's why it worked so well.
How did you get your role as Eddie Munster? I mean, tell us about going in, auditioning. What was attracted to that role that you wanted to play at your age? How old were you when you played that role?
I started right before I turned 11. So I was not even living in Hollywood at the time. I had done the Year of the Real McCoys. I went back to Missouri to live with my grandmother. And the age, they had already cast the show. They had cast it with 2 different people, a different mother and a different kid. And at the last minute, they brought in Yvonne DiCarlo, and they decided that they weren't happy. The kid's name was Happy Durham. They weren't happy with Happy. And my agent caught wind of this, and she says, I have the kid that would be perfect for you. And they go, well, we've looked at every kid in Hollywood. She goes, well, that's the point. He's not in Hollywood. He's in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. They flew me in for a screen test. And I didn't even go on an audition. I went directly to the studio, read a script with Yvonne DiCarlo, and filmed it, and they hired me.
Bada bing, bada boom. Huh?
Yeah, it was
Bruce,
amazing.
do you have any questions for our guest, Mr. Butch Patrick, a.k.a. Edward Munster?
How was it working with Fred Gwynn?
He was great. He was really, really busy all the time. Most of the time, the only time we had together was during our scenes, and I was either in school after that, and he was working. But he was wonderful. He taught me a lot about acting techniques. Some of the father and a lot of times when you're a kid, you don't really have a lot of dialogue, but they saw that I could handle dialogue, and Fred's character was kind of like a childlike character, and I became the instructor and he became the student.
Oh,
and
I know.
And some of the scripts, they flip-flopped it for humor, and the more they could see that I could handle dialogue, the more Eddie became a prominent character in the show. Sometimes as a kid, you just kind of walk in, walk out, but they actually wrote a lot of scripts for me to be a big participant in.
Well, when you would go out, Fred, this big goofy guy, Herman, you would say, Pop.
Yeah, G-pop. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, kind of like bringing him back in. Okay, Rick, you go ahead. It's your turn.
Well, firstly, we share a birthday.
August 2nd. Really?
August 2nd.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Yo,
Yeah, I've
Leo.
heard that 4 times this week.
August 3rd.
August 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
July 30.
July 30th.
Wow,
Yeah, we're
we
all
need to have
within,
a- we need to have a
You
Leo.
got a Munster question or you want a
I
birthday
do,
party?
yeah.
What do you
Tell
want?
me about
What's yours?
Yeah.
Tell me about when you guys went out to the ballpark with Leo DeRocher.
Oh, you stole my God.
You- I'm sorry.
That's a very interesting question because there's a twist to that. The gentleman that was the catcher that said, no, not me, Leo, and go
Yeah,
back to
yeah.
the minors. Well, he was my stepfather, and he was a professional baseball player.
Really?
Yeah, when my mom married Kenny, he was with the Angels. He came up through the Yankees and went to the Angels in the expansion. So when I wasn't at the studio, I had a chance to go to the ballpark for a few years and meet all the professional players, which was even better. But that particular episode, Leo DeRocher was managing the Cubs back then. Kenny, after that series, actually would sit down to the Tacoma Cubs where he quit baseball. But I got him his one and only acting part because Fred Gwynn liked him. Fred liked Kenny, and they gave him a chance to become an actor.
He was behind the dish. huh?
One of the funniest episodes ever is, see, one of the neat things about Herman and Eddie was I was always volunteering him for stuff, or he would be doing something with the father and son routine, hit the ball, hit Leo 6 blocks away.
Yeah, right.
So those kind of shows were always a lot of fun because Herman was always trying to be the perfect father and always keep his son, happy.
He always had those little talks with you.
Always a little
Yeah,
talk,
like,
little life talks.
Leo DeRocher sitting there, he got bumped in the head with a baseball. Where's the closest ballpark? 7 blocks.
That's it.
That was a great episode.
Yeah, that's a great episode.
Hit a grounder, Pop.
What was all right? Now let me see if I have it right. Your full name on the show, Edward Wolfgang Munster.
That's correct.
Natalie, that's one you missed this week. Just highlighting it. And I said, if you want to cover it, you have to know his full name. And in a second, the doll was Wolfie.
Woof woof.
Woof, woof,
Two of them you missed.
Woofy might have been acceptable on Jeopardy.
What is Wolfie?
Woofy was my teddy bear. He was a little teddy bear that I carried around. He looked like a little, I don't know, Mr. Hyde. He looked like a little type of wolfman.
Yeah.
Lon Chaney Jr. Whoever.
I know, yeah.
There's argument between what does he look like? Does he look like Lon Chaney Jr. the Wolfman, or does he look like Mr. Hyde?
Okay, which episode did you like the best or frustrated you the most that you didn't want to play? The time Grandpa mixed a potion and you ended up with a beard, or the time Grandpa mixed a
beard out of your
potion
soup.
and you ended up as a little girl? Which one was it that upset you the most? See, I know my.
Well, the one that I didn't like was at the end where I'm swinging upside down on a tree with a girl holding her hand. Because at that point in time, I was not into girls at all. But the potion with the beard was a really good episode. But once they put that beard on me one morning, I was not looking forward to the next day putting it back on because it itched like crazy. And at that point, I hadn't shaved or anything, so this was like something on my face that just I couldn't keep my hands off it. It was like, it was like really, really annoying. The Zombo episode was one of my favorite episodes. Eddie's nickname, Hot Rod Herman, and Zombo with Louis Nye. Was a funny episode because I love the line in it where I'm going to a TV station
right.
and I'm going, hey man, his house is all crummy. Isn't anything real around here? Eddie, it's television. Nothing's real. And it just struck me funny that here I am on television going to a studio.
I was reading. How is it working with Charles Nelson Riley?
Oh, that's a whole other ball.
I mean,
that's right?
That's just a. Was he just as crazy as ever?
Yeah.
He did a kid show.
I did Saturday morning, Lidsville, the summer of '71 with Charles Nelson Riley. I was told it would only air for like 1 year when I did it, and I only did it for the money, to be honest with you. But I did. But I thought most of my friends would be asleep at 10:30 on Saturday morning. Nobody'd ever see it. Well, it was on for 4 years, making a huge hit. And Charles Nelson Riley, to answer your question, was a wonderful guy. But he had a crush on me, so I had to keep my distance from him. But the Karoff brothers were great. I mean, in hindsight, when I look back at all the shows that they did, the Puffin Stuff and the Bugaloos and Sigmund and Land of the Lost, they really had a really good spin on live-action fantasy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Back in the day.
Well, I remember Lily said, Edward, don't get your beard out of that soup. Yep. And that's when you realize it dissolves. So.
Yeah, it was cotton candy. It dissolved.
Okay, which birthday present did you like better when Grandpa and Herman got in a fight to build you a birthday present and he built the go-kart on the...
Yeah, and then Herman wrecked it.
Huh?
And Herman wrecked it, and I wound up with a pedal car that, gee, Grandpa, I'm 9 years old. I don't get a kick out of a pedal, but it's got a propeller and it flies. So
that's good stuff.
That was good stuff. Yeah.
Jeez.
What are and I appreciate. Thank you very much. We're here with Butch Patrick. Butch Patrick played Eddie Munster in the Munsters in the 60s, and we have the hot rod cars. The Munster hot rod cars are at North Georgia Ford right here in Blue Ridge. We have all that information online. We're blasting it out on social media all day long, today and tomorrow. You can come up and meet Butch Patrick, get an autograph picture, and check out the hot rods.
I think they're doing some hamburgers and hot dogs out there,
yeah,
too.
food.
Okay.
And we bring an entire Munster merchandise. I have a 32-foot trailer, so now when I travel, I actually have a store that comes along with me.
Nice.
So if you like Munster stuff, or if you have Munster stuff, bring it on out. The photos are, photo ops are free, but we do have a huge. We got T-shirts, we got books, just a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
well, that's what I wanted to ask you. It's like, what is going on over here? And I noticed on your website you have a lot of things available, and you have that trailer.
Yep.
And all these things are available.
Well, it was funny. Yesterday we stopped on the way up at a police station outside of Atlanta, really Haperville, and they gave me an honorary. I'd been there before for a charity auction, and we stopped again. And they made me an honorary policeman.
Nice.
But while I was there, a couple people showed up. And they go, "Oh, now I don't have to go all the way to Orlando to get my Munster stuff." So it's like we're bringing the convention to you in a small, condensed version.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to go to follow me around, I'm coming to you. We do. We have T-shirts, books, coins. The little Johnny Lightning cars, coffee, yeah, all kinds of stuff. It's probably 20 items.
Now you guys actually shot the show in color. You went into makeup every day.
Yeah,
but it was the studio that chose not to spend at that time. Studios were going some shows in color, but there was a difference in the cost, and it was the studio that chose not to.
For the third season. That was for the third season. The first two seasons, all programming was black and white. That wasn't an issue. It was for the third season.
Okay.
Yeah. When there was the transition was there. I honestly think that's one of the reasons, but I really think Fred and Al were just ready to go home. They were New Yorkers that had been transplanted for 2 years out in L.A. And the combination of the cost a little bit, the ratings were sagging. We were a top 10 show for originally. Then we went to 15. Then we were in the top 25. Then we were almost in the top 40. We slipped down into the 30s. So I think it was a combination of all those. But they did mention that the color transition would be too expensive.
Was there much competition between the Addams Family show? How did that whole thing?
That actually worked out really well for both of us because we were on Thursday nights and they were on Friday nights. And the deal was, even if you preferred one or the other, the chances are you watched them both.
Yeah.
So literally each one helped the other one's existence if you think about it.
Did Al Lewis really hang upside down?
He didn't like it, yeah, but he did. He was not a happy camp. When he was upside down, he was you think he was cranky standing up? Hang him upside down.
And the dungeon,
the dungeon.
That was what are, before we end, because I could spend the day with you on this because I just love the Munsters. What are probably 2 or 3 of the top memorable moments for you on that show, whether it's off the air or on the air?
One of them obviously was Fred. One time we were leaving the Munster house as an exterior. It was getting dark, and they asked him, "Please go down, turn around, and come back immediately in case we have to do it again before we lose our light."
I know where
Fred,
you're going with
he
this.
took it upon himself to drive right out the front gate and hung a left on Lancashire and went up to Cahuenga. Went by the Hollywood Bowl, turned around and came back. We were gone about 15 minutes. But the thing was, everybody's looking at us in the Munster coach driving down the street, unauthorized.
That's
right. But we didn't know how much gas was in it. It's not the most dependable car.
Did the brakes work?
We got back, apparently. At least that day they did. Driving the hijacking of the Munster coach that day was my remembrance. Number 2 probably would be...
You got to sit way up in the back, right?
Well, yeah, I got to sit up on the back, no seatbelt, holding on for dear life.
Oh, geez.
We had a lot of visitors to the set. I got to meet Wally Schirra at the time, one of the astronauts, the Gemini 7. He was the only guy to, actually fly in all 3 programs. So that was a big deal. The Beatles came on the set one day. I wasn't there, missed out on that one.
Oh, dear.
But we had a lot of guests. It was the Universal tour had just started that year, so everybody that came out for the tour wanted to go by the Munster set. We were like the #1 destination for anybody that wanted to.
1313 Mockingbird
Most
Lane,
famous
right?
address on television. It was like they used that in so many scripts that everybody remembers the address.
Yeah.
We have that in our job interview form. They don't know 1313 Mockingbird Lane.
Yeah, and the music. One of the things about
we don't need them.
Well, one of the things about the show too is people don't realize Universal was the monster studio, and they took all that great monster technology of how to shoot a good monster movie and integrated it into the Munsters. So you had a comedy, and you had this funny twist on things, but you had great sets, you had great lighting, and you had really good visuals. It was good, and the music was good. We had a really cool theme.
I can't get that one out of my head now.
Home now?
Right now, we're at whatever hotel I may be in, but I'm between Missouri and Orlando. My wife lives in Orlando. I bought a house in Missouri that my grandmother used to own, the one that I actually lived in right after the Munsters.
Well, Butch Patrick, thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
being here. We appreciate it, and I probably should move along because Rick knows all too well. We could talk.
Yeah.
We could talk Munsters all day. We didn't bring up Maryland. There was 2 Marylands.
Beverly Owen left the show after 13 episodes, and then Pat Priest stepped in.
Huh?
Yeah.
Beverly went out to do a pilot. Was promised by her agent that the show would not sell. And once the show became a hit, she was stuck out there. And she was homesick and in love. And Fred and Al went to the producers and said, "You got to let this girl go home because this is like harsh and unusual punishment." They didn't want to let her go because that would rock the boat. So she went back home, and her husband, at the time, he was on Captain Kangaroo as a producer. They created Sesame Street together.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
Which I thought was so cool.
Neat.
Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it.
Come on out the Ford.
Did I leave
Ford.
anything out?
No, I think I think we probably bored him to death.
Not at all. Not at all. This is good.
I think we proved we really watched.
You do, yeah. Good job, Natalie.
I'm your host, BKP, and we're at Circuit World here in Blue Ridge, and beautiful Friday morning. And today and tomorrow, this is Butch Patrick, played Eddie Munster on the Munsters, right here, right on 515. You can't miss it. Northbound side, if you're coming from Blairsville, on the right-hand side, northbound left-hand side. Tim Ford, North Georgia Ford. They have the van, the trailer with all the Munster memorabilia, the books, everything. You can meet Mr. Patrick, autographs, but if you're a gearhead or you want to see the cars, the Dragula, put those together, and the Munster mobile there, the family car, North Georgia Ford, today and tomorrow. What is the time again?
Today is 3 to 6 Friday, and tomorrow will be 11 to 4.
3 to 6, 11 to 4, and on FetcherNews.com, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're blasting it out all day today and tomorrow, so you'll be able to find it.
And free photo ops all day long.
Free photo ops. Wow, my day is. I can go home. I can go home right
Your
now.
weekend's
I'm
been made,
telling
right?
you, man. I'm telling you. I'm your host, BKP, and when we get back, it's Jane's show because we're gonna we're gonna bring you in and let you have the biggest comment of the day. You ready?
You aren't gonna like it.
Okay. We'll be back right after these messages.